I'm recorded.
No.
No.
Nope.
Alright, so before I begin, I would like to thank my senior project advisor, Mr. Gould, for guiding me through the semester and helping me throughout the process. Mr. Archambault, our vice principal, and an avid sports fan, as I understand. Madame Osborne, my French teacher who has guided me through these last 4 years of high school. Park Whelan, my good buddy and my underclassman. And Mr. Hersom, my freshman writing teacher and an avid sports fan as well. So, this fight between Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao was held on May 2nd, just this last Saturday of the year 2015. Highlight that 2015. This fight has been a long time coming. Its negotiations started in May of 2009. So with that, I have the essential question of what roles have the Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather campaigns taken to delay this event, and how are they finally able to close the deal and make this fight of the century occur? So what I will be covering today is my essential question, which I just read, my inspiration, my prior knowledge, who is Manny Pacquiao, who is Floyd Mayweather, a timeline of the negotiations, the final negotiations, the role of Bob Arum, which is Manny Pacquiao's promoter, the outcome of the fight of the century, and my conclusions based on my research. As a Filipino, I grew up as a Manny Pacquiao fan. I've only missed 2 of his fights in which he lost, one in 2005 against Eric Morales and one a couple years ago against Juan Manuel Marquez, in which he got knocked out. And I'm also an avid sports fan. I played basketball for the Noble High School basketball team, and I played baseball and football also throughout my childhood. My inspiration this year really came from Jesse McNally, who passed away in August. He was a really good friend of mine, and he has really helped me guide me. He has really guided me through this year. He made me realize that I took everything for granted, and I realized that everything was so temporary in our lives. So he's really helped me guide me through this year. And he was also actually a Manny Pacquiao fan, and he used to always go over to my house for the fights. So what I knew going into senior project, I knew a lot about Manny Pacquiao. I read his biography, Pac-Man, My Story of Hope, Resiliency, and Never Determination. I read that for Miss England's English class in freshman year. I also watched his documentary Manny the Movie, which was narrated by Liam Neeson, which came out in December of last year, prior to fight negotiations. What I knew about Floyd Mayweather was through his fighting. I knew that he was an incredible boxer, and I knew that he was the richest athlete in the world, and he liked to flaunt his money. I also knew what the media covered. I knew that he had this, that the media perceived him as ducking Manny Pacquiao and running away from this fight. So I wanted to go into this topic at an unbiased standpoint and really analyze what each side had to offer and how they delayed this fight. So Manny Pacquiao was born on December 17th in 1978 in Cavite, Philippines, which is the southernmost region of the Philippines on the 2nd largest island. He has a record of 57 wins, 6 losses, 2 draws, and 38 of those 57 wins were by knockout. He holds 13 titles in 8 different weight classes, which is a record that he holds over Mayweather, who only has 6 titles in 6 different weight classes. He also is a congressman of Sarangani province, which is the province that is the hometown of his wife Jinky, and he's also a lieutenant colonel of the Philippine Army Reserve. Floyd Mayweather was born on February 24th, 1977 in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He holds a record of 48 wins, 0 losses, 0 draws, and 26 knockouts, so he's undefeated. His amateur career started at the Olympics in 1996 when he won a bronze medal in Atlanta. He has a net worth of $280 million and is considered the richest athlete in the world. So the idea of the fight started when rumors came out that Mayweather was returning from his retirement. Mayweather retired in 2000 after his fight against Oscar De La Hoya in 2006, and he stated that he had nothing left to prove in the sport. He came back for one more fight against Ricky Hatton, in which he knocked him out in the 8th round. And after that, he decided to retire for 16 months to to work on his promoting company, which is Mayweather Promotions. But in May 2nd of 2009, 16 months after that Ricky Hatton fight, he announced his official return to the ring at the MGM Grand Las Vegas. MGM Grand in Las Vegas, the same venue that Ricky Hatton and Manny Pacquiao would fight later that night. Suspicion of Mayweather's return stated that he had the intent of going back to the ring to fight the Ricky Hatton and Manny Pacquiao winner. But with that, he declared that he was fighting Manuel Marquez in July. So at that night, Manny Pacquiao fought Ricky Hatton and knocked him out in the second round with 1:35 left on the clock. Jim Lampley of HBO Sports, and he's a ringside commentator, said that it was Manny Pacquiao's most spectacular one-shot punch of his career. New York Times described the fight as Manny Pacquiao was dominated. Ricky Hatton was left helpless on the canvas. Following the fight, indirect negotiations started. Freddie Roach, which is Manny Pacquiao's trainer, started these indirect negotiations with the topic of the weight class in which they fight. People assumed that Manny Pacquiao would go up to Mayweather's weight class of 147, but Freddie Roach and Manny Pacquiao were not interested in that. He said that Manny Pacquiao's best is at 140. Following that, Mayweather also brought up the point in the revenue split of the fight. He wanted a 60-40 split in revenue, which the Manny Pacquiao representative said that would never happen, and Mayweather countered that it would be a cold day in hell before that happens, that a 50-50 split in revenue would happen. Bob Arum showed his animosity towards Floyd Mayweather, which I will talk about later, and called him delusional for asking for a 60-40 split. Official negotiations started after Mayweather fought Manuel Marquez and beat him to the split decision, and after Manny Pacquiao defeated Antonio Margarito with a technical knockout. So the months from May to September were just stalemate months. So in the fall of 2009, negotiations started. All terms were agreed upon quickly. Mayweather even stooped down and said that he would agree on a 50-50 split of revenue, and they agreed at the venue of the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas. Even smaller terms were agreed upon, such as who would walk into the ring first, which fighter would get which corner. So it was clear that both fighters and both campaigns wanted to make this fight happen. But it didn't happen. Blood and urine drug testing got in the way. Todd Booth of Top Rank Promotions, which is Bob Arum's stepson, said that it just showed up in a contract, that these drug testing terms just showed up randomly. But the Mayweather representative stated that it was part of the original contract anyway, that the Manny Pacquiao team just ignored it this whole time, and that they disregarded the fact that it was part of the contract. With that, Pacquiao agreed to testing with limitations. He stated that he did not want to get blood drawn within 38 days of the fight because he had bad experiences with his fight against Eric Morales, where he was blood tested, I believe 3 days before the fight, and he lost in the 8th round. So Freddie Roach came out and said that with Manny, that these blood tests were just a mental thing, that he just didn't like to do them. In a search for a solution, Todd Booth met up with Travis Tygart, the CEO of the United States Anti-Doping Agency, and Travis Tygart came out saying that there has to be no notice of these blood tests. It has to be unpredictable. So with that, the Manny Pacquiao team tried all these counter proposals, and they were all rejected by the Mayweather team. So negotiations deteriorated within a matter of days, and each fighter scheduled a new fight. Following this failed negotiations, a defamation lawsuit was filed by Manny Pacquiao towards the Mayweather team, such as his father, also his trainer, Floyd Mayweather Sr., and Golden Boy Promotions. He stated that the Mayweather team defamed him by coming out saying that he was using sports enhancement drugs to go up through these weight classes, saying that there was no way that this could be natural, that he could dominate in all of these different weight classes. The lawsuit was settled in 2012 under terms that are considered confidential. So In the spring of 2010, Ross Greenberg, the president of HBO Sports, realized there was only one thing that tied the two fighters together. It was their contracts under HBO. So he led negotiations. He decided to just take the terms that were in the failed negotiations from the fall, and with the 50-50 split, full blood and urine test, which Manny agreed upon, and saying that he just wanted them to fight. And in June 30th of that year, Bob Arum came out saying that full terms have been reached and the finalizations had happened. So he gave a July 16th deadline for the Mayweather team to accept these terms. Mayweather did not accept these terms. He failed to reply by that deadline. And a couple days after that, his representatives came out saying that they denied all negotiations, that the negotiations never even took place. So this gave Floyd Mayweather and his team that label for ducking the fight and running away from Manny Pacquiao. The following years were stalemate years. In 2011, Manny switched to Showtime Sports for one fight against Sugar Shane Mosley, in which he won. He then came back to HBO right after that fight in 2012. Right when he came back, Mayweather offered him $40 million to fight him. Pacquiao declined it, seeing that they could probably make more money if this potential fight were to happen. They continued to fight other fighters, and in 2013, Mayweather signed with Showtime for a 6-fight contract. This ended all potential fights. It was hard for two broadcasting companies to come together and make such a huge event happen. So final negotiations started through a waiter at Craig's in West Hollywood, California. In the summer of 2014, Gabriel Salvador noticed that Leslie Moonves, which is a CBS chairman and CBS owns Showtime, was a frequent diner at this restaurant. And Salvador's son was a trainer under Freddie Roach at Freddie Roach's Wild Card Gym in Hollywood, so he knew him personally. With that, he contacted Freddie Roach while Moonves was dining and said, "You have to meet up with this guy and make this fight happen." So the two met up the following day, and they discussed that pay-per-view numbers were down in all sports, even in the UFC, even in Manny Pacquiao's pay-per-views, with his rematch against Juan Marquez and Mayweather's fight against, Marcos Maidana was down. So they knew that the people wanted just one fight to happen. It was that fight with Pacquiao. So the two left knowing that both were interested in fighting, and they agreed that Bob Arum and Moonves had to meet up to make this fight happen. So the two met up in Bob Arum's home in June of 2014. They mainly talked about revenue split. Bob Arum proposed that if Mayweather won, Mayweather could get a 70-30 split in the revenue, which is what he wanted. He just wanted more money than Pacquiao, saying that he drew the crowd. But if Mayweather lost, they would split the revenue right down the middle. With that, Leslie Moonves continued and said that he would have to talk to Floyd Mayweather and Al Heyman, which is Mayweather's advisor. So it was just this year, after 6 years, that Floyd Mayweather and Pacquiao met face-to-face for the first time. In January 27th, they met at a Miami Heat game. Pacquiao was in Miami to be a judge at the Miss Universe competition, and Mayweather knew that. Mayweather knew that he was going to the Heat game. So Mayweather surprised his team in Las Vegas and brought them over with a private jet, saying that we have to see Manny Pacquiao at this event. And at halftime, Mayweather got up and went over to Manny Pacquiao and they talked. They said that they wanted to meet privately after the game in Manny Pacquiao's hotel room. And the main purpose of this was because Mayweather wanted to let Pacquiao know that he and Showtime were still interested in making this fight happen. A Sports Illustrated article by Chris Mannix stated that Mayweather felt like Pacquiao listened to him, and that's the reason the fight happened. Final negotiations actually started prior to the meeting, the encounter between them at the Miami Heat game. In the summer of 2014, Leslie Moonves hosted Bob Arum and Al Heyman at his home in the same den that he made a deal with NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell to host NFL Thursday night games on CBS. So he was known for making big things happen. Over 2 hours, Bob Arum and Al Heyman went over 20 negotiation points and agreed upon all of them. They agreed to have a 60-40 revenue split in favor of Mayweather and USADA regulated drug tests that both fighters would take. And they also agreed that they would fight at the MGM Grand Arena, opposed to what they thought would a venue that they proposed, the Cowboy Stadium, the new Cowboy Stadium in Texas. So Bob Arum played a huge role throughout these negotiations. He's the founder and CEO of Top Rank Promotions, and he's Manny Pacquiao's promoter. Arum actually promoted Mayweather from 1996 and signed him right after the Summer Olympics up until 2006. He had a falling out with Mayweather and Oscar De La Hoya after Bob Arum said that he would not give Floyd Mayweather, he did not guarantee Floyd Mayweather $20 million for fighting Oscar De La Hoya. So Oscar De La Hoya, who was under Top Rank at that time as well, met up with Al Heyman and Mayweather, and the three negotiated privately, going against their contract. So they agreed to make this fight happen on their own. And so Mayweather executed a $750,000 buyout, and the two fought each other, and they held a fight that was the highest grossing pay-per-view event in history prior to this mega fight that just occurred. Mayweather pocketed $38 million despite his win, and Floyd Mayweather pocketed $50 million with 2.85 million pay-per-view buys within homes, which surpassed Evander Holyfield and Tyson's rematch record of 1.95 million buys. So Arum and Al Heyman had huge animosity between each other. Arum mainly blamed Al Heyman for making Mayweather leave his Top Rank, and their relationship was really expressed by Ross Greenberg, president of HBO Sports. He stated that Arum thinks Heyman is disruptive and destroying the boxing model, and Heyman, he thinks he's disruptive and destroying the boxing model. You can't measure the animosity between the two. So it was evident that even before negotiations about Mayweather and Pacquiao started, that there was animosity held between the two, and their relationship was hostile. There was also a 2008 lawsuit filed by Mayweather against Top Rank and Bob Arum. Mayweather stated that Top Rank owed Mayweather money from 2 fights. He stated that Top Rank owed Mayweather 85% of the commission from his fight against Arturo Gatti, and 80% of the commission that Top Rank got from his fight against Zab Judah. But Bob Arum came out saying that the payment was withheld because Mayweather owed Top Rank even more money from buying out his contract. But so this lawsuit never went to court. It was settled privately because hurtful information could have been exposed to the world for both sides. Mainly, it was Al Heyman and Mayweather's connection and meeting against their contract to buy out their contract with Top Rank. So Mayweather really expressed his hostile relationship with Bob Arum after he left HBO for Showtime. Mayweather came out saying that we all know the Pacquiao fight at this particular time will never happen, and the reason why the fight won't happen is because I will never do business with Bob Arum again in my life, and Pacquiao is Bob Arum's fighter. So with that, it's clear that throughout this 6-year process, that even before this happened, they held animosity between each other, and it carried forward throughout the whole negotiation process. So the fight of the century happened on just this past Saturday. Mayweather won with a unanimous decision after 12 rounds. 2 judges scored Pacquiao only winning 2 rounds, and 1 judge scored Pacquiao winning 4 rounds. So it was clear that Mayweather won even though some may think that he didn't win because he wasn't the aggressor. While I was watching the fight, I noticed that Mayweather just outboxed Pacquiao completely, which I was sad, but it's fine. The fight holds the record now for the most pay-per-view buys. It holds 5.63 million pay-per-view buys within homes. That's surpassing Oscar De La Hoya versus Mayweather by 2.8 million buys. Mayweather pocketed $200 million, which surpasses Oscar De La Hoya's record by 150 million, and Pacquiao pocketed about 100 to 120 million dollars. So to reiterate my essential question, what roles have the Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather campaigns taken to delay this event for 6 years, and how were they finally able to make this fight of the century occur? So it was clear that both sides held roles in delaying this event. Bob Arum held hostile relationships with Mayweather and his team, and it was clear that blood and urine drug tests prevented the fight from happening back in 2009. And it was clear also through my research that it was just Mayweather's business strategy. All of this he said stuff actually gained buyers because even people outside of the sports world were interested. And to make this fight happen, it took a waiter and Bob Arum and Al Heyman to set aside the differences and to actually sit down and talk to each other and negotiate. And a 3-part documentary leading up to the fight stated that Mayweather got exactly what he wanted. That's why the fight happened. He dominated negotiations, he dominated the media, and he manipulated people to think that he was ducking this whole time. And that's why he created this mega fight that now ranks among the top pay-per-view grossing. That now holds financial records in pay-per-view history.
Questions from the panel?
I have some questions. I love the title. The title was, it seemed very fitting, like soap opera at times, right? But I guess that's what the managers and what the promoters want. They want all that buzz, all that interest, right? I do have to ask, have you heard Pacquiao's Scottish accent on the Men with Blazers show?
No,
By any chance?
I have not.
Do you know the show Men with Blazers?
Yes, it's a soccer. It's a soccer.
Two guys with blazers, and Pacquiao shows up last week in between them, and he does a great Scottish accent. It's pretty funny. But I was wondering, you didn't mention, you did not, in your research paper, you didn't mention anywhere about Mayweather's smackdown of Mexican Canelo. I don't know if did you hear about that fight? I just noticed it wasn't in there. Not that it had to be in there, because you talked about some other fights that Mayweather. It was a pretty big fight last year. I think it was Canelo, Mexican.
Well, Mayweather.
Just curious if you.
Well, are you talking about when I stated that pay-per-view numbers were down?
Yeah.
Yeah. They both, when Leslie Moonves met with Freddie Roach, because Mayweather has this tendency of always making fights have more than 1.1 million buys. That fight against Canelo actually only had 1.2 million buys within homes, and that's pretty low for Mayweather to have. They realized that there was only one fight that needed to happen to make that the fans wanted.
Well,
I have a question. Okay, you spoke about the revenue split a few times. Can you explain that to me, because this is not my world at all. I didn't even know this fight happened. I'm going to throw that out.
Sorry. So the revenue split is within the tickets sold at the actual event and the amount of money they make from pay-per-view buys. So for each of the 5.63 million pay-per-view buys, each of those buys in standard definition was $89, and high definition was $99. So the revenue is aside from what HBO and Showtime got, is what each promotion company got from that fight. And Mayweather, who promotes himself, wanted the 60-40 split. He got 60% of the revenue, and Top Rank got 40% of the revenue.
So if he won,
It didn't matter who won.
okay, all right.
It was just that when final negotiations started, Bob Arum proposed a 70-30 split, but it just ended up with a straight up 60-40 split of revenue.
I have a question.
So, this fight has been billed, like before it happened, had been billed as sort of like really bringing the boxing back into the front part of sports. Like people, just like you said, people who were not even into boxing wanted to see this fight happen. People have been hearing about it for years and years and years. And based on the style, as far as Manny Pacquiao, he's such an exciting fighter. He would be on a huge stage, and I thought, I was like, boxing is going to be big again. And then the fight happens. Do you think that the fight do you think that going forward, Floyd Mayweather will sell 1 million fights ever again?
It killed pay-per-view for the rest of history. This one fight was supposed to bring back boxing. It was supposed to make history, but instead it didn't live up to the expectation. It was just Mayweather running around the ring and Manny Pacquiao trying to be the aggressor. Not saying that Mayweather did not win the fight. He clearly dominated Pacquiao. He simply just outboxed him. But it was not what people were expecting. People wanted to see a fight happen, not boxing. It was labeled the fight of the century, but it was just a boxing match.
What's the difference between a fight and a boxing match?
A fight, personally?
Yeah, explain. I know, but what's the difference?
A fight to me is a brawl. Like Manny Pacquiao likes to fight. He likes to get in there and get dirty. Mayweather, on the other hand, is a counter puncher, and he simply just dodges punches and hits them with a quick jab or a quick right hook. And the whole time, Manny Pacquiao tried to be the aggressor, but Mayweather was simply just too fast for him. But if you watch Mayweather fights, that's what he does anyway. He's just a counter puncher. So to me, a fight is a brawl where both fighters get more than 360 punches to throw, and they both got 360 punches to throw, and that's pretty low for a boxing match, especially at lighter weights.
Who's your favorite heavyweight fighter of all time?
You see, I am not an actual boxing fan.
Okay.
I'm a Manny Pacquiao straight fan.
Okay.
So I like my interest holds in like soccer and basketball mainly. So I don't really follow boxing, but I only follow this fight in particular.
Okay. That's fair.
Is he a god in the Philippines?
He is considered a national hero, pretty much. He might as well. He's probably one of the most internationally recognized Filipinos in history. And even in my textbooks, when I was in the Philippines as a second grader, he was in there as one of a Filipino hero. So, I did a project on him at freshman year, as I said, and research showed that crime rates actually went down when Manny Pacquiao fought, and ABS-CBN GMA, which is the main broadcasting stations of the Philippines, actually put out a warning on the fight of Mayweather and Pacquiao fights, saying that please to turn off all other